Hey! Before, in the very first entry in this series and channel, I presented the only Scooby-Doo villain to ever give me nightmares. Turns out, he gave you guys nightmares too. But there were a ton of you that brought up another particular guy in a mask that gave you all nightmares and really wanted to see spotlighted too. So many I couldn't ignore the demand. And hey, why not make it a mini-series within a series? After this video, let me know which other baddies genuinely gave you nightmares. If there's enough interest, maybe they'll show up in a sequel video later. The villain first up is from the Scooby-Doo show, just like the one from my own nightmare. I guess this was a series with some pretty great and scary monsters, huh? In fact, for this video we're going with the very first ever series premiere episode, High Rise Hair Raiser, and the villain in question, the Specter of Ebenezer Crabbe. A popular episode, it was featured on the compilation VHS Scooby-Doo Volume 2 in the 1980s, and again on the 2019 Best of Warner Bros. 50 Cartoon Collection Scooby-Doo DVD set. Let's get into it and find out what makes this episode stick with people so much even years later. The episode opens late one night as a construction crew is working on a high-rise. Suddenly, the Spectre in question reveals himself with his terrifying laugh. I have to say, there is definitely something unsettling about his laugh provided by John Stevenson, who many might know as Mr. Slate in the Flintstones, or for one of his countless Scooby-Doo appearances. Seriously, the dude was in Scooby up until like 2010. There's something ominous and unnatural about how the cackle of Ebenezer hits the ears, and his inhuman light blue skin and bright yellow eyes just add to the effect. Elsewhere, the gang are enjoying pizza when Velma notices a string of safe robberies being reported, especially strange as everything is being taken without them being broken into. Shaggy points out they need some money themselves as they all look for a potential job in the paper, and here comes the eternal age-old question. Where do they get the funding to drive all over and solve mysteries? If this episode is anything to go by, it turns out they just get side jobs when they need more. Luckily, there's a construction job with no experience necessary. Perfect for them.
All they have up so far is the skeleton.
Skeleton? Where?
Asked if they're willing to work night shifts, the boys say yes and get the job. Unfortunately, the job is so open because of the Spectre.
That's a new one. A building being haunted before it's even built.
Turns out there used to be a house here rumored to be haunted.
Haunted?
Yes, haunted. They moved the house, but it seems the Spectre stayed. Shaggy and Scooby aren't as keen on working here now though, but Fred reminds them of how much they need the money, and Velma wants to solve the mystery.
Yeah, you're right. Right.
The boys are introduced to the team, and even Scooby gets a little hat. They find out they're working on the 19th and 20th floors, the top ones, and immediately regret all decisions, which I agree with because I would simply pass away before I made it that far on a high-rise. I'm with them on this one, especially since creepy old Ebenezer is waiting for them up there already. Fred says they'll keep their eyes open for him, but the boys disagree, and that's the only way I'd be making it up there myself. Fred's dropped off while they go even higher and meet the foreman, Red Sparks. As soon as they see how far he is, they simply crawl instead of walking, which again, likewise. They start doing well enough that he leaves them alone, and Shaggy ends up vibrating Scooby all over the high-rise as Ebenezer watches from above. Shaggy asks for a towel and the Spectre drops it as Shaggy realizes Scooby is on the other side, but they write it off. They should be more concerned about it coming from above, because they're supposed to be on the highest floor while he's 2 floors up. Better not to consider such a ghostly interaction, I suppose. Later, as Scooby pulls up a bucket, he also pulls up old Ebenezer. He tries to get Shaggy's attention, but by the time he looks, there's nobody there. Scooby pulls up the next bucket and sees the Spectre again. To be safe this time, he ties the bucket there to get Shaggy's attention immediately, and the two run away from the cackling spirit. They find Fred, and the Spectre's conveniently gone. Meanwhile, as the girls do research, Velma finds the house that was moved was built in 1820 by Ebenezer Crabbe. Over the subsequent 50 years, he was suspected of witchcraft due to his never aging.
Wow, he would have made a fortune in the cosmetic business.
Dermatologists hate him. He hasn't aged in 50 years. Learn his secrets now. Anyway, he disappeared 60 years ago and supposedly is still alive, returning home every 20 years, making him 180 years old. The gang meet back up and update each other on what's happened, with Scooby demonstrating the Spectre's appearance. Velma discovered where the house was moved to, and Shaggy and Scooby volunteered to join to get out of there.
Smart move, eh, Scoob? Nothing could be scarier than this place, right?
They would live to regret this. They pull up to the house and Velma threatens to leave them alone, so they immediately follow.
We decided you couldn't handle it by yourself, Velma.
The door opens and they're terrified to find Ebenezer, but the person informs them she's actually his great-great-great-granddaughter, Nettie Crabbe. Invited in, Velma asks to look around, and Nettie says they would be delighted to show them around. They, as in she and Ebenezer. It's time for his return tonight after all. She gives them directions to his room, telling them he was into black magic. They accidentally knock over a bus, which Shaggy mistakes for the real thing, and in the room find his black magic book. It has spells and other neat weird stuff. Shaggy reads the one to turn people into monsters, which definitely seems to work. Thankfully, the antidote is just as easy after weirdly not noticing each other.
Only a real dumbbell would believe that. Yeah, a real dumbbell.
Meanwhile, Velma finally comes out of the closet.
Well, Nothing in this old closet.
Inside a trunk, they find a locked box, and inside, bats. Thankfully for the boys, their paper. Nettie comes in reminding them it's almost time for Ebenezer and offers tea, but they decide to take off. They update the others and find out it's impossible to have met Nettie because she herself has been dead for 50 years. Velma shows them a receipt for an expensive telescopic lens she also discovered as they were leaving, made out to Ebenezer only a couple of months ago. As they go check out the lead, the specter watches from outside. At the optical lens company, they meet the owner who looks over the receipt and shows them an identical lens for reference. Upon further inspection, Fred notices it makes the room brighter, and the owner has them use it on the outside. They discover it specifically helps turn night into day, which must clearly have something to do with what's going on, and unfortunately the specter is still following close. On the way back, Shaggy is uncomfortable, feeling like he's still around, and we see he's hanging on the top of the van. He starts to hear him growl, and old Ebenezer pops down into view as they stop and run. He chases Shaggy and Scooby down, cackling all the way. They're cornered until their fearful shaking vibrates the door open, and they lock him out. Once he breaks in, they sing happy birthday to him with the lens safe next to a big cake, and after they blow out the candles and the light with it, he cackles his way back out, unfortunately with the second lens. Reading the paper back at the pizza parlor, Velma finds out there's been another robbery, and Daphne points out the construction site's in the middle of all the robberies. They set up a trap, and just in time, Ebenezer makes his appearance, unfortunately on the wrong beam for the trap to work. Shaggy and Scooby are sent to lead him the right way, but he stays on the path chasing the other three onto a beam where they're trapped. Scooby and Shaggy try to enact the plan themselves, but things go wrong and they go flying. As Ebenezer brags about trapping them instead, the boys come rolling in, land on the beam, and swing into a penthouse. Ebenezer slides over to Nettie, and the bucket of concrete from the failed trap flings onto their feet, trapping them anyway. They unmask the specter to be Red Sparks, the foreman. Nettie turns out to be the construction worker who had shown them around. The gang explain how the two men used the telescopic lens to target all the buildings in the area, seeing the owners open the safe in perfect light and later use the combination. They haunted the high-rise because it was going to be so big it would obstruct their view and had to stop it. Scooby knocks over a plant, discovering all the stolen money inside and finishing the case yet again.
Oh, it was nothing.
As a gift from the police, Scooby receives a special pizza, making him an honorary police dog. And to make sure Shaggy isn't left out, he kindly gives him the olive.
You're welcome.
And that's the episode and the specter of Ebenezer Crabbe. This one didn't ever personally scare me because this batch of episodes weren't in the rotation of reruns or home video releases I had growing up young enough to have been potentially frightened by it like Gramps the Vamp. But it's easy to see why old geezer Ebenezer remains such an unsettling and memorable spook to so many who did have to live with his ominous cackle in their nightmares. The Scooby-Doo show remains one of the top tier classic Scooby series with just as many great villains as the first two before it. You might be surprised by how many of the iconic ones are from this series and not the original. There's nothing extra that's interesting or weird to say about production or release for this particular episode like Vampire Bats. So I guess that's all there is for this round. Although, hey wait, I just remembered, that black magic book worked. So that was real? Why did these guys have a real black magic book? And how do I get one? Did old Ebenezer Crabbe ever frighten you? If there was a different spook or creature that gave you nightmares additionally or instead, let's hear it. If there's enough demand for that one, it might get a spotlight next time I return to this miniseries. Okay, I know this channel runs on the spooky side year-round for obvious reasons, but the real season is finally upon us, so let's switch into pure Halloween mode until October is over. Next time we'll take a look at a classic Scooby-Doo Halloween episode, so make sure you're subscribed if you don't want to miss it. Like the video for algorithm reasons too, because it's trying to not like me apparently anymore. I'm also on the socials, etc. Bye! Scooby-Doo!